And I'm going to give you a little bit of an open-ended question to kick things off. Because obviously we know the Kansas City Chiefs are the Super Bowl champions. Obviously, we know how stacked the AFC, at least we all thought it was coming into the season. There's a little bit of a narrative to me that I think is a little bit false. I said it this week on the podcast. There's this thought out there the AFC is not as good as people think. I don't think it's the truth. I just think we all kind of forget that these teams sort of play each other, and it takes about 3-4 weeks to get everybody in, and people are going to beat everybody up. I still think that there's very good football teams out there. Just right now, and I understand people are saying Miami and Buffalo and Baltimore and all of these sexy picks.
I don't know about Baltimore.
And I'm like, I don't know if Baltimore matches up with Kansas City. I think Buffalo's year, was kind of 2 years ago in that classic playoff game they had with Kansas City. And Miami has injury history players, and it smells like to me they can't play very well in cold weather. So I guess my point is a lot of people are trying to knock down Kansas City, saying they haven't played well, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, you're trying to find an excuse to get rid of the next dynasty in the NFL, and it's just not going to happen.
Nope. I mean, overall, the AFC is tough. Even Houston.
Yeah.
Houston, I didn't think they'd have a win by now. I thought CJ Stroud was going to be on his back with an ACL tear. And I'm not saying this because I want bodily harm to him. I thought he should have been the number one pick. I thought he was a smart pick, the safe pick. I like Bryce Young. He's interesting. And probably even though we're both Kent alum, you and I both know I love my Buckeyes. There might have been some bias in there, but it's like, if you can't run a QB sneak with Bryce Young, that's a little bit worrisome. But Houston's done fairly well. They're 2-2 based off of tiebreakers. They're second in the division ahead of Jacksonville. And I'm not going to say their proper name on here because we have narratives to uphold, but Indianapolis is on top right now. But Kansas City, Buffalo have looked legit. Miami's looked legit. Baltimore, they could sell me a little bit more, but I think, they're doing decent. Pittsburgh are frauds. But one of the teams that we thought coming into the year might make some real noise, New York Jets, their season basically ended for the most part, 4 snaps into their season when Aaron Rodgers went down. So I'm hoping that Zach Wilson, that Sunday night game against the Chiefs, I'm hoping that game where his teammates actually helped pick him up in terms of just emotional moment where he's like, I failed. I'm the reason we lost. And them seeing him grow there. I'm hoping just for that guy's sake. Like, I want to see him succeed after that game, because you could tell like he knew that was probably his last chance, and he probably bought himself some goodwill there in terms of just what he was able to do with the locker room. But Buffalo, Miami, Kansas City, those 3 are obviously among my favorites. Cleveland can still get it turned around if Deshaun Watson knows what his shoulder can do. You got to win the rest of your division games there. Otherwise, I think if you go 3-3, it's going to be a very difficult road in the division. And then Jacksonville, I'm not going to count them out yet. Houston is not going to be close, but if they make the playoffs, they'll be at least interesting for a storyline. And then you got the Chargers. There are a couple of good teams, but I'll give to some people's credit. If the Bengals were not trotting out a half-injured Joe Burrow, who I feel like could be on the verge of tearing an Achilles just with that calf injury, the AFC would be stronger if the Bengals were playing up to their potential, but they're not. I'm not saying they had to be 3-1, but at least 2-2 and actually playing competent team football, especially on the offensive side. But the AFC is still strong. It's just a little depleted due to a couple of injuries.
I may be the only person in the world that still thinks Cincinnati's going to be there at the end of the season.
I think they will too. It's just, I don't know. It's just like the calf. Like, we've not seen Burrow like this when he's been healthy. And obviously he's injured. That's concerning. Like, if I'm Cincinnati, if it costs you a game, sit him. Sit him before it's too late. Because if you sit him for one game now, and that means he's healthy for most of the rest of the way, and you rattle off a big win streak, that pays off down the road. Because I think this week they'd be better off getting him a game on the bench and then bringing them back a little healthier. I don't remember when their bye week is, but I mean, if they're trying to hold out till then, I don't think that's wise. You need to give him at least, you need to give him some time, man. I mean, I don't know what else you're going to do. I mean, what it looks like their next game is against Arizona, then the Seahawks, and then they have their bye. I don't think you can take Arizona lightly, and you can't take Seattle lightly either. That's the problem. So with the Bengals, they're the real wild card right now because they're not where they should be. And I'd say right now, rest them against the Cardinals, even if that means you take a loss. Play them against the Seahawks, give them a week of rest with that bye week. Then you play the 49ers and Bills, and that's going to be a gauntlet that you want to be prepared for.
So the weird thing is, I don't know if you saw the Vegas line for the game against Arizona this weekend, which I took Cincinnati this week in my best bets. They're only a 3-point favorite.
Cincinnati is?
Yeah, they're only a 3-point favorite on the road against their. I thought for sure they'd be at least a touchdown favorite. So
no, not with the way they're playing.
But I mean, come on, it's Cincinnati against Arizona.
But also, you have to give credit to Arizona here.
I'm
Arizona's
not giving any credit to
I know
Arizona
because I'm going to give you crap for all the stuff you did with Cliff Kingsbury.
Well, let me explain why. Because I have a theory on this. Who did they play their first 3 games against? Washington, Giants, Dallas. You know what all 3 of those teams have in common? All 3 of them are NFC East opponents. Who did Jonathan Gannon just come from? The Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC East. Gannon already had those teams game planned for, and we saw what happened against San Francisco. They got smashed. They got their 1 win against Dallas. They played hard. They're done. They're not going to win another game the rest of the year. Cincinnati's going to bounce back this weekend. They're going to stop Arizona. I think that's the worst line I've ever seen in my life. And Cincinnati's going to come back on their way because Burrow said he's getting healthy. And I'm sorry, I have a tendency to believe them.
I don't believe him because I see quarterbacks like him try to play through things and they shouldn't. He needs to rest. If you feel that confident they can win, sit Burrow, play the backup, and they can win.
Well, I mean, their backup is Jake Browning. I mean, here's the thing with Cincinnati. They should have planned. They should have got a backup.
They've got AJ McCarron on that practice squad.
Oh, AJ McCarron. Stop it, Sean. AJ McCarron hasn't played in 4 years.
But, I mean, if you want a veteran, that's not Browning. He's your next best option. I mean, but, yeah. I mean, Cincinnati's it's just weird with them right now.
It is strange. Well, I want to talk about another team in the division. And that is our hometown Cleveland Browns. I said going into the season they needed to be 2-2 for the first 4 weeks to stay alive. They did that. Obviously, stomping Tennessee, which I'm sorry, Tennessee is not very good. Obviously, Cincinnati without Burrow, they took care of business. Should have won that game at Pittsburgh if it wasn't for the poor play of Deshaun Watson. And then obviously, when you don't have
the Ravens
Watson,
game, you couldn't do anything about that one.
Yeah, and then obviously, Dorian Thompson-Robinson's a preseason quarterback that everybody falls in love with, and we realize that he really isn't a true backup NFL quarterback because he has no game plan.
Well, he's only a 5th-round developmental rookie. Don't say that yet. I mean, these guys can still develop. He's not going to be a starter. He's not a starter.
Then.
He's not a starter, but he does fit more of the traits that Watson fits. Although you can't exactly run the same game plan. I'm just saying, give him some slack. Like the Ravens eat rookie quarterbacks alive. Like that was a tough team to go against, and I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt.
I'm sorry. That's where we disagree. Nonetheless, where we agree is we know this season is all on the basis of Deshaun Watson. Now I know where me and you will heavily disagree is when Nick Chubb went down, which we're obviously not going to talk about the gruesome injury. We're not going to talk about the hit. I'm talking about from a game plan perspective. When Chubb went down, my first reaction was, you know what? If you're going to lose one position on the team, and I don't care if it's Nick Chubb, I don't care if you're based off the running game. If you're going to lose one position in your group, where you want to lose it is the running back position. I thought they were going to sign Kareem Hunt the next day. They pretty much did. Jerome Ford has ran nicely. And so I don't think they've lost a lot of juice offensively without Chubb in the lineup. It all comes down to, do you have the quarterback? Is Deshaun Watson going to be accurate enough? Is Kevin Stefanski going to modernize his scheme, which we
That's
see?
where I have to interject, my friend. Chubb was the safety valve. He would have gotten you in that offense. That would have been a whole different game. Ford could not run against the Ravens. I mean, that was obvious. Hunt was barely usable against the Ravens. Chubb is a whole different monster. And I'm not you would not have won the Ravens game, but that would have been a different game. Probably would have been a decent Ravens victory by margin. But right there and then, you cannot have told me that, Chubb wouldn't, like, Chubb is still a big part of this offense. Like, especially if he was healthy, that changes that whole game. That changes the Pittsburgh game too. I think you come out with a win, you're 3-1 if he's healthy coming out of that game. Chubb is part of that offense, and it's not just because of his impact on the field as a player, but he is a heart and soul guy. He's a glue guy. He is a leader. I don't care that, I think he should have been voted a captain over Deshaun Watson or even Charlie Hewlett. I love Charlie Hewlett. I've interviewed the guy. He's a down-to-earth dude. But you cannot tell me that, especially when I heard on the radio on the way home. I was in downtown Cleveland that night for a meeting. On the way home is when I heard everything go down. When you hear Nathan Segura's voice shake like it did, like it felt like a funeral just for the next few days when Chubb, just that injury. You need Chubb to be successful. That's why I'm on board with trading, some lower round draft picks to get Jonathan Taylor as a rental out of Indianapolis. I would not have thought about that until after this past week. If Thompson and Ford had actually done really well against the Ravens, or at least halfway decent, I wouldn't even have thought that as a scenario. But you need a running back in this offense. This offense cannot just solely rely on Deshaun, because if his shoulder is going to hurt like that, then you can't rely on him to be on franchise quarterback just because, well, he hasn't played football for so long. And the fact that he had to sit out a week like that, it does not inspire confidence in me. I mean, if he takes, like, the bye week came early for the Browns. If this had been something, if this was later in the season, I don't know what would have happened. I mean, you have to have a running back in this system because you are not doing enough to pass the ball, honestly, with enough conviction, with enough to convince me like that. Elijah Moore, like, he's done good with volume, but what has it done? It's been like, I think he's had like tops of 49 to 60 yards. That the offense needs to have some sort of star studded guy to help lead it that is outside of the quarterback position. You need to get a guy like a Jonathan Taylor, because if Jerome Ford doesn't step it up in the next 2 weeks, I'm not saying the season's doomed, but I'm saying it's a very difficult road to try and get to the Super Bowl. Because I'm hoping the Browns get there. I'm hoping they prove me wrong. But being realistic, you will not be able to get there without having a guy that has the impact of Chubb, not just on the field, but just knowing how respected and revered the guy is. That has been a blow. And you have to have someone who can replicate that production and back up the talk. That's why I'm saying, and you're not going to give Indianapolis a first round pick. Not for rental back like that. And I would not give him a second round pick either, but give him something. Get Taylor here. Let basically, maybe even write into a contract to not use the franchise tag on him. So that way he can go get his bag in free agency. And I know it's a kind of out there scenario. Even I'm still a little bit skeptical of what I'm pitching. I'm not going to lie about that. But you need some running back that's better than the two that you have on your roster right now, and better than Pierre Strong as the third one. And you need another weapon. You need something, because this offense, if you're just relying on Deshaun and he has another shoulder boo-boo, it's not going to go well. I'm sorry to say that. I know I'm probably being a bit condescending, but this is all business, man. You go out and acquire a quarterback like that and pay him $230 million fully guaranteed. You got to be able to perform.
That's the key. And that's why when you have a great quarterback, maybe the great team, and you get outside of San Francisco, let's take San Francisco out of it, because obviously how great Christian McCaffrey is. Name me the great teams in this league that rely about 50% or more of their offense with a running back. They all have bad quarterbacks. The great teams in this league don't pay their backs. They just don't. They have a running game, but they do it by committee. So if you're saying the Browns need Nick Chubb, they need Jonathan Taylor.
Los Angeles Chargers are among the teams that come to mind. Miami Dolphins, even though they go through the air, you've got
the Chargers don't need Eckler. They don't. They're still putting up massive numbers without
Mike Williams is done for the year. Mike
Yeah,
Williams is done.
Mike Williams is done.
And Quentin Johnston has not shown very well yet.
Quentin Johnson has to step up. He may be a bust, but I mean, nobody thinks the Chargers.
I'm not saying he's a bust, but he's more like developmental track. He needs another year.
I mean, listen, nobody thinks the Chargers are going to win a Super Bowl with Brandon Staley as their head coach. That's just the way it goes.
But, over under on the bet, week 9 or week 10?
You know what? I'm going to say over. I think he gets fired at the end of the season. I don't think he gets fired before week 9 because I know that they have obviously Dallas coming up. I know in a couple weeks after their bye, Kellen Moore revenge game. I think they win that game. They got another game with Denver somewhere in there. They got a game with the Raiders. I actually think week 7 is at Kansas City. So they could be sitting, 3-3 around there. But no, I think they'll give Staley the rest of the year. But
the fact that he's a defensive coach and they do so well on offense, though, that just boggles my mind.
So speaking of defensive coaches, I want to dive deep into this. There's 2 topics I want to dive into.
Who is the first one? What I wanted to pitch?
One of them has to do with Staley, but we're going to get into the one that you wanted to pitch and I wanted to talk to you about because what is it now? 4 years ago, when Tom Brady left New England, I said to you, Sean, that's it. The dynasty is over. And you kept presenting me saying, no, it's not over yet. Trust in Belichick. They're
it wasn't exactly like that as far as I remember. If I did say that, then I will fully own up to it. But I wanted to at least give the hoodie a chance to see, like, okay, let's see what you can do.
And then
the chances come and pass.
No, listen.
Right.
No, then in 2021, when they made the playoffs, you still didn't kill them. And I said it's the biggest fraud playoff team I've ever seen in my life. They're not that good. Mac Jones is not a good quarterback.
You saw what happened last year.
They don't have any wide receivers offensively. They have no speed offensively. You know what they're good at? They're good at drafting guards, safeties, and kickers and punters. That's
also cornerbacks and cornerbacks and linebackers have thrown them into there too.
That's New England's brand. We're gonna run the football, power football. We're gonna play defense. We're gonna create turnovers. That doesn't work in 2023 football. You watch New England, and then you watch a team like Miami or Kansas City or Philadelphia or even Detroit. Some of these high-flying offenses, it's night and day.
I mean, even Detroit's running the ball. Even Kansas City is starting to see Pacheco break out. Like, you got to give some credit to some of these teams' ground games. But Belichick, I thought, he could turn things around, but they butchered Mac Jones last year. This year, they have looked absolutely horrid. You cannot tell me anymore that, I was just like, I didn't want to kill him off yet. It's like, let's see. He's one of the greatest coaches of all time. But now we see a lot more of the greatness relied on Tom Brady because Brady actually got these guys paid. And these guys, even if they stunk in other places, with Brady, that team was different. That team had an air of confidence to them. You don't see that anymore. This New England team it's so weird because growing up our entire lives, we were so used to seeing New England atop that AFC East division. And now Tom Brady, like you saw the last couple of years in Tampa Bay, they won the division, 2 out of 3 seasons he played? Because there was that whole tiebreaker with the Saints back in the year they won the Super Bowl.
Right.
I mean, you see, like, even Baker Mayfield, better this year than he was last year with a couple teams. But overall, I mean, Brady changed everything in Tampa Bay. where their team is a lot different now because of what Brady did over 3 short years. And now you see all that having faded away over the past 4 years, or just a little under 4, like 3.25 over in Foxborough. It is amazing to see how much Brady really was the driver for success. Both men had a hand in it, but without Tom Brady taking all those pay cuts, taking all of the world onto his shoulders, that team does not win 6 Super Bowls. That is just crazy to me to just really see this now. It's just like, I wanted to give Belichick the benefit of the doubt, thinking there has to be some method to the madness where it's like, there was so much, that he did too, just on his side of the ball with the defense. But now you really see Brady was the main catalyst. Like, without Brady, they're cooked. I don't know, like, unless Mac Jones suddenly finds a new gear and really figures it out, which I doubt he is, it's not going to go well. You're going to be in a perpetual rebuild for the next probably 5 years. And maybe these words come back to haunt me, but it's true. Like, I mean, New England fans, they've been spoiled to death for 2 decades, so they can take this. But
So
I'm just so tired. Wow.
So my bold prediction, one of them going into the year, I came out about late August, and I said these are going to be 5 off the wall bold predictions. They're probably not going to happen, but they have a chance based off some wild scenario, just for fun. I kind of threw them out there, and one of them was, this is going to be Belichick's last year in New England.
I've had the same feeling too. That's what I've been feeling. It's just like something feels off. Even though he could get that all-time wins record, it's like the way this year's going, and you want to read where things stand, I have some more thoughts on that. I think this might be it. This might be his final ride.
So,
I mean,
by the way,
even Pete Carroll's getting up there too.
By the way, I want to finish it with this thing. I think their new head coach is going to be a head coach that's currently somewhere else.
Flores. Is
No.
that who? No.
No.
You don't think it's going to be Flores?
I think McDaniels comes back.
You're kidding me. No way. No way.
I always thought that was the plan. I was surprised he left to begin with. I think
the fact that he's sucked again in his second head coaching job in Las Vegas.
That's the place, New England, where they already have the culture built in. Everywhere else you go, everybody tries to replicate Belichick, right? And
it fails outside of Brian Flores,
and it fails. And by the way, Flores didn't work with Tua. Look what Tua's doing with Mike McDaniel now. He looks like an MVP candidate.
Well, the Dolphins still did well. They had 2 winning seasons. The Dolphins still had 2 winning seasons. It wasn't all on Flores. And plus, you had the whole
but Tua looked like a bust. Did Tua not look like a bust with Flores? Come on, Sean.
The dude, remember, he had a big injury coming out of college. And yes, but he was still figuring things
close to this. He was still figuring things close to this.
I still think he could have figured it out with Flores.
Not with Flores. That offense was not. It wasn't the motion. It wasn't this. It wasn't clever. Miami is out coaching people. Like it's a complete 180 from what they were with Flores. Very good defensively, not very good offensively. Now we're very good offensively.
But you have to admit, Flores was done dirty. He was done dirty.
Oh, for sure. But I will say this.
So I'm just to my point, though. This is my only point. Say this. He is a success. He is one of the rare successes from the Belichick tree. One of the rare ones. I will
say this. I'll give credit to Miami for this. They pivoted from a potential Sean Payton, Tom Brady to Mike McDaniel and Tua. And by the way, it worked out for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, just overall, I just don't know about Josh McDaniel going back and being a successful head coach. He's failed in Denver. He waited and waited and waited. He took the Las Vegas job after backing out of the Colts job, and he has sucked. You cannot tell me that he would do better in New England. You can tell me all about the culture, but the culture's dead. Brady was part of that culture. Brady is not there anymore. The culture is dead.
I don't know if the culture is dead. I don't know if it's dead.
It's certainly not coming back with McDaniel. If he leads the way that he has in Denver and in Las Vegas, New England's going nowhere. They're not going anywhere, man. Like, I mean, it would be interesting to see, but it's not going to end well. It will not end well at all.
Okay.
Period.
I want to talk about the mindset real quick of defensive coaches, and then we're going to get into the rookie quarterback. So real quick, there were 3 scenarios on Sunday in 3 different games from defensive coaches. Scenario number 1, Brandon Staley pulls up Brandon Staley, and they're up 7 at their own 30, and they do a 4th and 1 QB sneak. First of all, I get it. Staley's very aggressive. You're trying to end the game with your offense. And I'm a very aggressive offensive-minded coach, as you know. But I don't care what the analytics say. You're going against a backup quarterback. You have 7 sacks on the day. The Raiders cannot protect anybody, and they cannot move the ball. They had 10 points going into the 4th quarter. Punt the ball. The Raiders' offensive line hasn't blocked Khalil Mack or Joey Bosa all day. Punt the ball and play defense. So Brandon Staley,
Khalil Mack gets 6 sacks on the poor guy. I feel bad for O'Connell.
So Brandon Staley got away with that one. Then there's the Chicago one. Matt Eberflus. Justin Fields plays the best game he played all season long. They go up 28-7 on Denver. Then Denver obviously rages back. But you have a 4th and 1 at the Denver 30. You, as a defensive coach, can decide to take the field goal and rely on your defense to get one stop against Russell Bleepin Wilson, who's been the worst second-half quarterback in football this year. Or if you go for it, at least come up with a better play than let's run the ball out of shotgun to Khalil Herbert. Not even giving your best player, Justin Fields, or a sweep to DJ Moore. No creativity whatsoever. I thought that was the wrong decision. Then we get to one more, and I'll let you break down all 3 of these decisions at once here in a second. We get to Ron Rivera. Now, I had said going into the Washington game, I thought Washington had a chance to beat us. The exact same way they beat the Eagles in Week 10 last year on that Monday night. Run the football, control the clock, get a couple of lucky-ass penalties. By the way, it was all happening once again. Control the clock, get a couple phantom holding calls, can't get off the field on 3rd down, and then Sam Howell decides to throw a great pass on the last play of the game. No idea how Dotson got open. But instead of going for the win, when you're a 9.5-point dog on the road with an inferior team, Ron Rivera says, my guys are too tired to run a 2-point play. Excuse me, what? That's a fireable offense.
Did he say that legitimately?
Yes, he did. He said, I felt like my guys were too tired in that moment, so I decided to kick the extra point.
I would have shredded him to bits if I had known that in WTS. If you had told me that, I would have absolutely changed that narrative and added an addendum to it.
So,
oh my God. Okay, you're putting that note in for part 2. Oh my God. Because it's going to be your Eagles narrative that I've now decided is a part 2 staple. We're also throwing that in with Washington. Oh my God.
So Ron Rivera decides, my guys are too tired. I'm going to kick the extra point instead of winning. Listen, if they don't get it, you say, oh man, good try. We went in there. We went toe-to-toe with the NFC champions. It's 2 yards away. You just drove down to tie the score with 1:20 left and something with, I think, 1 or no timeouts. Unbelievable. And then they get the ball in overtime, and then they put it away. Obviously, Jake Elliott kicks the field goal. Philly wins in overtime. So once again, it's 3 defensive coaches with 3 bad decisions. And I just feel like, to wrap it all up on the topic, and then I'll let you go. I just think we saw with Brian Dable. We got the most out of Daniel Jones anybody could ever freaking could last year. I think offensive coaches just have more sensibility to the quarterback position. They have more sensibility in knowing, hey, we need weapons. We need tight end. We can be creative. We get the ball out of the quarterback's hands. They just understand the game is built offensively for you to move the ball down the field. And these defensive head coaches, a lot of them, Sean McDermott's not one of them in Buffalo, but a lot of them think we can still win the game 6-3 As long as our quarterbacks don't turn the ball over, we'll be fine. And it's not like that in today's NFL.
Oh my God. So first, dumb. That's Brandon Staley. Even dumber. That's Las Vegas. And then absolute fucking dumbass, or just to be PG, absolute dumbass, Ron Rivera. What the flipping hell? I have no words for you, man. Especially with Rivera, that one really. I mean, all right, rookie QBs. Oh my God.
Okay.
Oh my God.
So going into the draft, you mentioned at the top of this show you were a big fan of CJ Stroud. I was a big fan of Anthony Richardson. A lot like I was the biggest fan of Josh Allen when he came out of Wyoming. And not to be raised or anything,
You and
but
Mitch Spinell were both
not
on
to
the
be racist or anything, but I literally called Anthony Richardson the Black Josh Allen. That's what I saw in him. I saw a guy who was raw coming out of college, but a very talented skill set that had to be with the right offensive coach. And he got the perfect guy for him. Shane Steichen worked with Justin Herbert in LA his rookie year, worked with Jalen Hurts over the last 2 years in Philadelphia. I think Steichen's brilliant. And after the fiasco the Colts were last year with Jeff Saturday and
I mean, to be fair though, to Saturday, like Irsay inserted himself in all that. If any
100%.
sensible other person had been running that operation, they would have tabbed somebody else.
The point
so,
is,
like, I'm never going to blame Jeff Saturday for all of what happened.
But the point is,
he tried his best. Saturday tried his best, but yeah, Steichen was the right hire. But I will say, anyone who tries to just tear Jeff Saturday apart, Saturday tried his best in one of the most difficult situations that probably any man could have walked into.
So, and then there's Bryce Young. And I took a swing in the dark because nobody knew what the NFC South was going to be this year. And I thought Carolina.
I still don't think we know. I don't think we're going to know until week 11.
And, I thought Carolina, I'm very surprised they're 0-4. I thought they were going to be a pretty good team. I had them winning the division at 8-9. I thought Bryce Young was going to be pretty good with Frank Reich, Miles Sanders, Hayden Hurst.
Well, you traded away your top wideout to get Bryce Young, so
they did, and
I love Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen's good or reliable, but just remember, DJ Moore is a really good receiver when he has a good quarterback.
Yes, so, and I do agree, and I didn't love turning away DJ Moore, but I get it because you needed a quarterback.
Yeah, it was necessary. Like in the grand scheme of things, if you wanted to get the number one pick, unless you were a few spots closer behind, so like if you were like at number 5 or number 6 instead of what was it, number 9?
Number 9, yeah.
You may not have had to give up DJ Moore necessarily. Maybe. I'm not saying it would have been an absolute, but
then there's Stroud real quick.
Yeah.
And Stroud, like I predicted Houston to finish this year 7-10. I know a lot of people thought that they were going to be 2-15, 3-14. I said, look at the free agents they picked up on the offensive line, their weapons, their defense.
I mean, to be fair, I didn't pay attention to that, and that honestly has made all the difference. Stroud, even with a guy like veteran Robert Woods, he's not been his number 1, but he's been a reliable go-to.
Yeah, and Woods still has the
potential to. Yeah, and Woods still has the potential to have big games. He can still flash out when he needs to. I mean, Nico Collins, Tank Dell. I mean, the Texans, for all the mistakes they've made the last couple of years and the one and done coaches, I'm hoping they've hit on D'Amico Ryan. Because that would mean
Will Anderson as well, who they
that was the thing. That was a literal draft day out of the movie.
Yep,
we literally saw a draft day in the movie play out in the NFL draft. And for all of you script conspiracy theorists that the NFL is scripted, that might have been your best piece of evidence right there. I'm not on that board with you, but that might have been the one moment you might have been able to convince me. But that I will give Nick Caserio. He has some balls to go and do that. He has some big cojones to go and do that to get not only Stroud, but also get Anderson out of Alabama.
So just quickly, I know that you're in love with CJ Stroud. You already stated at the top. What are your thoughts, Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson? For the record, the one guy I did not love in the draft, and I'm not surprised he fell to the second round, was Will Levis. The kid
Levis was a wild card, just to mention him briefly. I mean, I could see the potential, but at the same time, I just felt like he needed a right situation kind of thing. Like he was kind of like Josh Allen when they finally got him fixed up in what was it, year 3 or whatever year it was that they finally got his mechanics in shape. But like Bryce Young, I still think he can be a good quarterback. It's just wait and see for him. That's why it was kind of hard to write Carolina's narrative. It's like I need some more data. I need to see a little bit more because it's like I see the promise, but it's like I can't really judge you yet because I know all the circumstances that led into this. Anthony Richardson, he's high ceiling. I just feel like the bust potential is still there. I'm worried about, especially if you lose a safety valve like Jonathan Taylor. I'm worried about what happens, especially if that, was it Quentin Nelson and other pieces that once vaunted O-line are getting older or getting cut or trade over time. And that's not going to do Richardson any favors because that team was originally built for Andrew Luck, who had to retire because he was just so banged up and injured all hell. And then CJ Stroud, and look, CJ Stroud, salute him for actually beating Pittsburgh and actually having them like go back and lick their wounds. But man, he's looked good, but there's also been a few rookie mistakes thrown in there. I mean, Stroud is not Luck. He's not rookie year Luck, where Luck looked like he was like a young veteran. But Stroud is definitely someone I'm really high on. I'd say it's for me right now, just through 4 weeks. The NFL is very reactionary, so this can change at any time. Stroud, Young, Richardson. I need a like, and Richardson and Young are very close. I don't know who I would really pick over those two right now. Like it's literally a coin flip. But right now, I mean, Stroud is just a little bit ahead of the pack, but I don't know if he'll be the offensive rookie of the year, but we'll see. But it's probably going to be Puka Nacua.
All right, Sean, last NFL question for you, and I gotta ask it because I'm a
Oh
good show
boy.
hoster, I'm a good podcast. I gotta ask this question: are you a Swiftie?
So I don't know how to exactly answer this question because I'm just not all into just capitalizing on the pop culture moment. I I'm not someone who listens to, and I'll just say this: I do not hate Taylor Swift. I'm just someone whose music tastes just vary. If I listen to music, whether it's a regular song or a soundtrack, it's just whatever vibes with me, just it fits. If it doesn't, it's like, oh well. Like there's only a few genres of music or artists I really do not like or I hate. Swift, I would say, is in that I don't like her. I don't hate any of her work. I'm not someone who's super familiar with a lot of her work. If you probably pointed it out to me, if it's something that pops over the radio, I might recognize it. So like, I'm not someone who's constantly listening to Taylor Swift or all the other artists. Like, it's just for I think for me, a lot of it's just like a little bit of rock and roll. Some of that might be my dad's influence. A little bit of just like other stuff too, especially just stuff that outside of when I'm just trying to calm myself down is more like kind of like for me, I'm that high energy up tempo guy. And right now, like for folks who are listening, you're hearing me probably really, pulled back for the most part, kind of trying to dial back the energy. I kind of overdid it a few weeks ago with some shouting, let's just put it that way. And I will not go any further and comment on that. But in terms of being a Swiftie and not trying to dodge the question, I don't know how to answer the question. I mean, if not being a Swiftie means not listening to her music, I don't listen to her music, but it's not because I hate Taylor Swift's music. It's just part of who I am. It's just the music doesn't really speak much to me. But if there's certain songs, there's probably I've heard that I probably like, and I probably just don't recognize the voice to the artist. So I don't know if I would say I'm necessarily one or not. I'm just saying I think the NFL is going a little too far on pushing that whole rumored romance thing. I think it's a little too much, but right now, I mean, it's a cool moment, but I don't want it to be overplayed throughout this whole season and turn into a soap opera drama. And that's what I'm afraid will happen. But if there are any Taylor Swift fans out there, like, please, like, I'm just a guy who's just like, I'm a simple dude. So please don't attack me for anything I say. Like, nothing against Taylor Swift. Like, just like my choice in music is just a bit different than probably yours. So again, nothing against Taylor Swift. There's probably some songs I've heard I just don't recognize and put face to name always. And like, if someone pointed out to me, I'd be like, oh, yeah, that's a good song, or I'll be honest, but yeah, that's my opinion. That's the best answer I can give. So I don't know whether that classifies me as a Swiftie or not.
Like that clip from the Brands World podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brands World podcast right here on YouTube.